Hey folks, BlackCross here, and welcome back to another video talking about the PlayStation Showcase of May 2023. And the thing that I want to talk about first, before I actually talk about all the stuff that interests me and stuff like that, is that while there's not a big list of games that I'm interested in, that's not to say that this was bad. In fact, after I saw the PlayStation Showcase finally, I looked on Twitter, and there were some people that were kind of downing it. Now here's the thing, I am not for Jim Ryan, okay? I am not for him. As a Sony fan, I am interested in one thing and one thing only, and that are the games that are going to be coming out for the system. So naturally, this isn't about him, this isn't about how much power the PlayStation 5 can do, it's about the games. And like I said, there are some good games that I was definitely excited for and stuff, you know, after this announcement. And really, I feel like people are losing the reason for these showcases, you know? They're not showcasing, you know, the best of the best. They're showcasing everything and anything, you know? And that's something that needs to be looked at because, really, in all honesty, anybody has an interest in something, you know? Anybody. Like, for example, there is, of course, that said mention, and I'm mentioning it now because while it doesn't interest me at the moment, it might interest me later on, but I'm only mentioning it right now because obviously there'll be a lot of people who are excited for it. And that is, of course, the Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater remake. Here's the thing. The reason why I'm not interested in it is because right now that's not like my biggest thing that I want to play almost as soon as it comes out type thing. It's a maybe whenever I get around to it to buy it or something like that, I will eventually play it because I haven't even bought the Resident Evil 4 remake. In fact, I hadn't even bought any of the Resident Evil remakes, so that tells you anything. You know, I may talk about them, but that doesn't mean I'm going to immediately invest my time into one to get it and stuff like that. So the Metal Gear Solid remake, you know, to see that, you know, that's definitely something to be hyped for. And there's going to be a lot of people who are definitely excited to see that. It's not my immediate interest, but it is something to be noted for. There's also something called Foam Stars, which is another Battle Royale game. But I'm not gonna lie, while I'm not interested in this type of game, I'm not gonna lie, it does look good. It does have my interest to a certain degree, but again, I don't play Battle Royale games, so not to say that I don't like it. I think it looks cool. I think it looks fun. It has like this weird combination of like Splatoon meets Kingdom Hearts gameplay style. Know what I mean? Like if you look at the gameplay and you're familiar with the two games, you'll look at it and then you'll go, oh no, you're right. It does have that same look, you know, especially after Kingdom Hearts 3. It definitely has some features that I can see right off the back that tells me, oh yeah, that came from Kingdom Hearts 3. And then of course they showed off Final Fantasy 16 trailer, more trailer and stuff like that. And I decided to skip through it, not because I've lost interest. No, in fact, really in all honesty, my interest has been more magnified than it ever has. And I think that's the biggest thing. I want to keep my interest into it. I don't want to go above it. You know what I mean? Because I want to do a second video talking about that, but it's like Final Fantasy 16, the way they're pushing it, they're overhyping it, and I don't want to go over the expectation limit, you know what I mean? So try to understand it from my perspective of like me trying not to be overhyped for something so that I can still enjoy the game. But anyway, I've dilly-dallied long enough, but just to basically summarize what I mean, try to keep your expectations lower, because what's going to happen is that if your expectations for something is extremely high off the roof and stuff like that, you're going to be easily disappointed on a number of times. You're going to be more easily disappointed on a number of factors. I also want to apologize real quickly for the lighting adjustment because I'm testing on a few things in terms of light setup. So if it seems like things are getting brighter or things are getting darker, it's not the camera, it's my light thing. I don't change it that often, so it's one of those things where I'm like, I'm just kind of testing it to see what all I can do with it and stuff like that, so that way things don't become overly bright, but still enough to where it doesn't seem like I'm just staring at a computer screen, which I am. So right off the bat, the first game that grabbed my interest the most was actually Phantom Blade 0. And The thing is that whenever I looked at it, it made me feel like a Bloodborne meets Dark Souls meets Sekiro. Does that make sense? But I mean, the gameplay looks amazing. The gameplay, I ain't gonna lie, is pretty intense to look at. I love the moveset that's gonna be placed in the game and stuff like that. The way that you can just hide behind pillars and climb on walls and stuff, or scale through walls and stuff like that to dodge enemies and stuff. I love how it all looks. It looks very impressive, and I'm relatively excited for this one. I have to say, I do like how this is going to play out and stuff. I don't know about the whole die in 66 days. It would be interesting if it's like a time limit type thing, you know what I mean? Like, you have to beat the game in under 66 days, or if it's just for story plot purposes and stuff like that. Be interesting if it turns out to be an actual mechanic, but I sincerely doubt that that is the case. It's going to be interesting to see if that ends up being the case, but I just felt like there's a reason why they say that, and I don't know if it's because just for story purposes, or if it's literally like a mechanic that they're going to implement into the game, in which where you can't die more than 66 times, or you literally have 66 days in terms of the game time specs to beat it, or whatever, you know. However way it works, because right now, really, in all honesty, that's kind of up in the air at the moment. But I ain't gonna lie, that looks pretty interesting to me, and I actually like that. The other game that grabbed my interest, and I'm gonna mispronounce it really, really badly, and it is Tower of Aghasba? However way you want to pronounce that last bit, I'm pretty sure there's some kind of alternate language that I'm not reading into and stuff like that. But however way it's pronunciate, the gameplay interests me. The ideology interests me. So, the way that I saw it is that you're basically rebuilding this dying world. This world that is practically dead at this point. You're rebuilding it. You're rebuilding cities. You're rebuilding forests. You're rebuilding the culture of this world and stuff. And however way it works, I like how it looks. I like how the atmosphere is, and I like how graphically it looks. It has like a mixture of realism, yet at the same time is somewhat molded cartoony. Like, it's not completely realistic. It's not like Resident Evil or Metal Gear Solid. It's got its own style, but I like the ideal behind this game. I like the ideal that they have for it, and it looks really good. I'm looking forward to this one especially. Sadly, I have been out of the loop for Assassin's Creed for a long time. The last Assassin's Creed game that I played was Assassin's Creed 3. And the only Assassin's Creed games that's got my interest was Black Flag, which is the 4th game, and then Syndicate, because I've heard a lot of people say that that was a really good, really solid Assassin's Creed game. And here's the thing, while I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that say, oh, well, Origin, Odyssey, and Valhalla are equally good as well, they didn't grab me, I'm afraid. You know, whenever I first saw them and everything like that, they didn't really grasp my interest, sadly. So it's one of those things where it's like, unfortunately, it didn't really grab my attention of like something that I would definitely want to play anytime soon. But Assassin's Creed Mirage, when I first saw it, I literally thought that this was going to be like an Assassin's Creed remake, and I was about to lose my absolute shit here. I was about to lose it, because I was like, oh my gosh, a freaking Assassin's Creed remake, this is so freaking amazing! And it turns out it's the next installment for an Assassin's Creed game. But, I ain't gonna lie, whenever I saw this, it definitely has me interested. So it's one of those things where it's like, if Black Flag and Syndicate was the only games that made me want to come back to the series, I now have a third reason to come back to the series. So that's a good thing, right? If you're willing to pull me back into the series again, that's always going to be a plus, right? It's unfortunate for the other 3 that we've had in the past that didn't really grasp my interest. I don't know why. It's probably because of the fact that it's too RPG-ish, which sounds weird, but especially when you think about it, because it is Assassin's Creed, you know? It's like, you don't expect it to be heavily enforced of RPG mechanics. You want it to be like an action game, you know? The way that it's been for a long time now. Or at least how it has been, for me anyway. And so to see it try to turn into more of an RPG mechanic in order to appeal to other players and stuff like that, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I need to try to give the other Assassin's Creed games a shot. I don't know. But we'll see once I finally do dive into some of them, and we'll see if it can pull me into the other games. Either way, I have a lot of catching up to do. The final game that I saw that had my interest the most was Dragon's Dogma 2. I have to say, whenever I first saw this, my mind went, well, now we have even more of a reason to play the PS4 version of Dragon's Dogma. Like, I played the PlayStation 3 version, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I was recommended to it by a friend who basically told me of the gameplay and everything like that, and I was like, you know what? I'll try it out and see. You know, I wanted to see what this game was like and stuff. And the second I started playing it, I realized this is so much different. This is so much different than any other RPG game that I have ever played. You know, the fact that it has everything and anything that it needs to be in order to be its own game, but just enough to where it was just perfectly how it needs to be. Like, it's a perfectly well-balanced game in my personal opinion. The only problem that I had with it, of course, at the time, was the frame rate issue. Its frame rate was really, really shoddy. Now, whenever I first heard that it was going to be a PS4 port of it, my thought was, well, this could resolve that issue. This could fix that problem entirely. So, I definitely do want to play the PS4 version and see how that plays out eventually. And then that way, when that game comes out, I can jump into it after playing through the first one. Because finding out about Dragon's Dogma 2, that got me excited really well. It's more of a, like, you get to continue playing this game and then have a sequel right afterwards, you know? It's like, it's really cool. It's really nice to see that we're seeing a continuation of Dragon's Dogma. So, that's really cool to see. So, like I said, not a whole lot of stuff talked about, not a whole lot of things happened in this PlayStation showcase, but just enough to where, yeah, it still has quite a bit of interest. And there are games in here that I think a lot of people would still like, you know, regardless of who you are, what your playstyle is and stuff like that. And I think Sony should do that. I think Sony should do what it should do in order to appeal to their core audience, you know. Not every game has to interest you, and I know there's going to be a lot of people that's like, well, there wasn't Lost Souls Aside, there wasn't another Dark Souls game or Bloodborne game, or there wasn't a particular remake that they wanted that they didn't see and stuff like that. And I get that, but you think about it. This is encompassing for the next potential year. You know, we saw games that are going to be coming out this year, and then games that are going to be coming out next year. So it's one of those things where it's like, it's one of those things where I do understand the ideal problem, but I also don't understand why the complaining whenever you're going to get a game regardless, you know? And another argument that I saw was that a lot of them not only are PS5 availability, but also will eventually see a PC availability. Like, a lot of people were complaining about that. And I think what it is that Sony is trying to compete with Microsoft on that field, you know? It's like Microsoft has their own PC marketplace, you know? It's the same as their Xbox console. Because Microsoft is saying, well, you don't have to have the recent Xbox system. If you have a PC, you can play it on that one, you know? And you will have freedom of adjustment and stuff like that, you know? That's what they're trying to do. And I think Sony's trying to do that as well. Sony's trying to appeal to that side of the audience as well. It's being like, you don't have to have a PS5, you could also have a PC as well, you know? There is that possibility. I sincerely doubt that that's actually the role that's going on. There could be a contract deal, there could be a number of reasons why they're doing it the way they're doing it right now, but really, we just really need to just stop for a moment and think about how things are being displayed, and instead just be excited for games that are going to be coming out, especially since the majority of these titles are going to be available for the PS5 regardless, which means the PS5 is more demanding now, and a lot more people are more hyped up about wanting to get a PS5. I know for me personally, I definitely wanted to get a PS5 before Final Fantasy 16 got released, and I'm glad I did, and so far, I haven't been disappointed with it, especially with its load times. The load time, that's like my favorite feature of the PS5. It's just, aside from it, yeah, the games are slightly sharper, the ray tracing is kicking in and stuff like that, you know. It's hard to see the 4K resolution with my TV because mine doesn't support 4K, but I can see the noticeable difference. But the biggest thing that I can admire is the load times. The load times are just absolutely amazing. I cannot wait to test further on the PS5, especially with certain games that are upgradable to where you can just have the PS4 game, insert the disc, and then you can choose the option to upgrade it to the PS5. I cannot wait to start testing it on games like that, just to see how they would look, and how they would feel, and how they would respond and stuff. And to see that load time, that what gets me the most. So anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next video. This is BlackCross sign off. Catch you guys later.